Obviously, we want to win the division. We should win the division. It's just a matter of executing and staying healthy, and I think we should be right there. We just have to win more World Series. I mean, it's about winning. I mean, all this other stuff, it all leads to one thing, and that's about winning. And we just have to put the kind of teams on the field that can be in the playoffs every year and get back on top.
From Fox 32 Chicago Sports, this is Chicago Sports Tonight.
Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome into Chicago Sports Tonight. I'm Cassie Carlson. The Cubs hold their first full squad workout, and Tom Ricketts sets his expectations for the season. But first, we start with the NFL. The Dolphins releasing a key player in a position of need for the Bears. And joining us today to talk about it all, we have Danny Parkins from FS1's First Things First. Danny, thanks for joining us. NFL Combine a week away. Free agency begins in 3 weeks. And the Miami Dolphins are creating more cap space by releasing Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill, making them free agents. And, of course, we know the Bears are in need of a pass rusher. Are you a fan of Chubb, who's only 29 years old, 8.5 sacks last year after missing 2024 with a torn ACL? You like that idea for the Bears?
I think it's like a secondary plan. I definitely think that they will be looking, shopping in that department store, if you will. But, Bill Barnwell put out today, trade the 25th pick in the draft and DJ Moore for Max Crosby and a 5th round pick. Like that is a bigger swing. Max Crosby plays 95% of the snaps. Now he's 29. He's got a very expensive contract. But I think that I think you got to aim a little bit higher than Bradley Chubb. We're talking about Crosby had the meniscus, but that was fully repaired. He had an ankle sprain. Chubb has had much more serious injuries and has had many more problems with availability than Crosby has during his career. So it's clearly a huge issue of need. But given that Caleb has broken through and is still on his rookie deal, I think that Ryan Poles is going to take a little bit bigger swing than Bradley Chubb. And Chubb would be the type of consolation prize that you would do a little bit later into the offseason.
All right, so we know that Max Crosby would be the biggest swing, but I think there's a handful of people that don't want to give up the future first-round pick or whatever that's going to come along with that. And then there's also the fact that Trey Hendrickson is widely considered the best free agent on the market when it comes to a pass rusher. And maybe he's a little bit less than he would have been a year ago because he's coming off having core muscle surgery, and he did have back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons just 2 years ago. Do you still feel like that is a viable option for the Bears, or do you prefer Crosby, as you mentioned, younger? He has a little bit. I think what's concerning about Hendrickson is we saw Jalen Johnson go through core muscle surgery, and mind you, he came back the same season, but you just don't know what he's going to look like coming off of that being 31 years old.
Yeah, Crosby's a better player than anyone else that we've mentioned here. And so getting the best player is very appealing, but you're right. Giving up the 25th pick is tough, right? You are just, if you give Trey Hendrickson money, you're just giving him money. If you give Chubb money, you're just giving him money. If you get Crosby, you're paying him his money and you are giving up a very, very valuable asset in the 25th pick in the draft. This is a little bit of a cop-out, but a lot of NFL general managers will tell you, there's 32 first-round picks, but there are not 32 players with first-round grades. My gut is if Ryan Poles and his scouting staff feels like there are 26 guys or 25 guys with first-round grades, then they would not be willing to trade that pick for Max Crosby. But if they think this is a draft where there's only 20, 21 guys who are legitimate first-round talents, then you're much more likely to be willing to trade that pick. Because you'd have to be paying a second-round talent first-round pick money. So this is a little bit of a cop-out, and the Combine hasn't happened, as you mentioned earlier. But I think Ryan Poles has to just first come to the conclusion of how many guys would he actually be comfortable drafting in the first round. And if that number is fewer than 25, then I'd expect him to try to aggressively shop that pick.
Well, I think the thing that makes it interesting is Daniel Jeremiah, who's obviously going through all the Combine prep right now, said that it's a really good draft class if you're in need of an edge rusher. So maybe the Bears do feel like they have a couple options there that would be available at 25. And, of course, that talk is just going to get ramped up next week down in Indianapolis. All right, let's talk some baseball, because the theme of the Cubs is they have unfinished business from last season, and they are now favorites to win the NL Central. Tom Ricketts, as we heard earlier, said today they should win the division. But inside the clubhouse, everyone's like, hey, we should be winning a World Series. And I feel like the expectations are probably as high, or do you think they're higher than 2016 with the way this team is constructed?
Oh, they're not higher than 2016. Are people saying that? I mean, I
think it's probably the highest sense.
Say again?
Highest sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 2015 is one of the most enjoyable Cubs seasons of my life. Like, it's a top 3 Cubs season of my life. Like, 2015, they were so good. They were ahead of schedule. They were young. They were exciting. You know, the first round game against Pittsburgh when Arrieta had the gem against the Pirates, Schwarber with his power surge in the series where he set the franchise record for postseason home runs against the Cardinals in a single postseason. Like, that was so unbelievable that coming into 2016, it was just like, you got to continue it. Last year's Cubs team was good. The Bregman addition was huge. Getting Steele back is massive. Like, I absolutely agree that there are big expectations on this Cubs team. I don't think it's as high as it was in 2016 because they've won. I also think that winning a division and getting into the playoffs and then letting the chips fall is what basically every team in baseball has to operate with in a world where the Dodgers exist.
Yeah.
Because the Dodgers are just so clearly better than everybody, and they so clearly have more resources than everybody, that what Tom Ricketts said there is like empirically correct, but players, want to say compete for a championship, as they should. That should be the goal. But, like, make no mistake about it, there's a huge gap between the Dodgers and everybody else.
We know that the Cubs are going to be good defensively. They were last year. The addition of Bregman is going to make them that much better. I think when you look at Crow-Armstrong, we heard him talk a couple days ago, you can tell that it still bugs him the way that his season ended at the plate last year, knowing he had the highest chase rate and that he wants to be able to be more consistent over the entire season. What kind of expectations do you put on PCA going into this year?
I mean, can he win MVP? I think that is the question for him. Like, is he going to be a guy who's really streaky offensively and has good months and then bad months? Or is he going to be a guy who can consistently be, one of the best, 5-tool players in baseball? Because obviously the speed's not going anywhere. The glove's not going anywhere. And that gives him a very, very, very high floor as a player, given that he plays a premium position of center. But if he cuts down on the strikeouts and hits more than 30 bombs, and he's the best defensive center fielder, and he steals a ton of bases, like, he's going to be a top 5 finisher for MVP year in and year out. So, that is the goal, is going to be offensive consistency. And, I love watching him play. He's one of the most exciting players in the sport. So, I think he can do it, but I think his frustration is correct. Like, how he finished last year, like the fact that he ended up finishing with an OPS below 800, that ended up being a little bit of a disappointment for the season that he had. So if he can get that up to like in that 850 range with his defense and speed, he's going to be considered one of the best players in baseball.
All right, let's take a look at the South Side, because Munetaka Murakami drew like a Shohei-like crowd with the Japanese media when he spoke for the first time at spring training over this weekend. And it was just interesting to see and how much excitement is around someone playing for the White Sox right now. He had 5 straight 30-homer seasons over in Japan. There's obviously going to be a learning curve that comes in Major League Baseball, but Colson Montgomery said his skill set is freakish at the plate. What do you think he's going to do for baseball on the South Side? Is the excitement enough to make him worth the gamble of bringing him here?
Well, listen, I think that anytime the White Sox are adding pieces, it's a good thing, and spending money, it's a good thing, and generating excitement, it's a good thing. Like, I don't know that it's going to have a massive impact on, attendance in year one. And I still think they're a ways away from legitimately competing, but it's a really exciting story. I think, like everybody, I was shocked to see it. Like, to see that pairing. And Japanese professional baseball is excellent. Like, maybe there's a little bit of a struggle with, some of the velocity and a little bit of an adjustment, but I would expect him to translate and have a pretty good impact in his first year here, given how long he's been playing professional baseball.
All right, let's talk about bringing excitement to the NBA. What'd you think of the new format for All-Star Weekend?
So, I love the NBA All-Star Game. I'm a bit of a historian on it. It's a sports guilty pleasure of mine. I could talk to you about a lot of All-Star games in the past. One of the favorite moments of my childhood was going to the 97 game for the NBA at 50 in Cleveland with my dad when I was 11 years old. I love the NBA All-Star Game. The issue was not the format, though I thought the format was fine. Like, Team USA versus the world, first year on NBC, leading into the Olympics. I thought it fit with the motif. But the format was not why that game was better. The game was better because of effort. Period. That is the only thing the All-Star Game needs. It just needs a little. When the All-Star game was in Chicago, it was pretty good. And it was pretty good because of the Elam ending and because it was the first All-Star game after Kobe Bryant's passing, and they had named the MVP trophy after Kobe as a tribute to him. So guys wanted to live up to him. Like Victor Wembanyama calling everybody out ahead of the All-Star game and saying, I'm going to play hard. If you don't, that's on you. Like that message made its way through. It's like, oh, the 7'7" guy is going to play hard. I can't just loaf and do crazy alley-oops. He'll block me and embarrass me. Like it is just a matter of effort. Kawhi Leonard gave effort. Jalen Duren gave effort. Devin Booker, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Edwards, who referenced Wemby when he won MVP. Like Jokic didn't give a lot of effort. Some of the older guys didn't give a ton of effort. That's fine. But as long as guys try a little bit, you can go back to East-West and everything will be fine.
All right, talk about effort, because tanking has always been an issue in the NBA. And Adam Silver said this past weekend they're looking at everything to try and prevent teams from trying to improve their chances in the draft lottery. They recently fined the Jazz and the Pacers. And I want to take a look and listen to something that you had to say on First Things First about tanking.
Here's the truth. Shame should be a deterrent. When I was still wearing sweatpants to school in the 4th grade, a little bullying got me to change my ways. The league should be mocked for allowing this. This is anti-sport. It is anti-competition. There are a lot of issues facing the league, but none more paramount than teams feeling like there are no real consequences to flaunting the anti-tanking rules that already exist. I mean, it's no big deal. It's only the integrity of the league that's at stake.
All right, Danny, what's the good solution?
So I think an obvious one is you can't pick in the top 4 multiple years in a row. Like I don't think it fixes everything, but I think it is a good first step in addition to actually really punishing these teams. You can't punish them with money. Like you can't punish a team that would sell for $4 billion with a $500,000 fine. Like that's completely meaningless. So taking away draft picks and then limiting on how high in the draft you can pick multiple years, I think would be good, legitimate steps. I am all for a real proposal to take away the draft and make there be like a rookie free agent class and let the rookies, like if you're a top engineering student out of Purdue, like you don't get drafted to go to NVIDIA. You get recruited by Apple and NVIDIA and Google and all of those places, and then you choose the best offer. I'd be fine with that, except I don't know if anyone would ever choose Utah. Like, it's not like the NFL where it's like, no, they would choose Green Bay because if you were a quarterback and Green Bay didn't have a quarterback and they could give you the most money, they would do it. So I don't know that you can completely eliminate the draft in the NBA, but you need to make it very clear to these teams that what you're doing is akin to throwing games. And it is an integrity of the sport thing. It is like fixing games. Like it needs to be a red line issue that you cannot cross in turn. Like if you're bad, that's fine. If you want to be bad intentionally and trade away your players, that's fine. But you cannot sit healthy players when you have paying customers. That is just such a damaging thing. Like if you want to like stop they don't care about the games in the NBA, if you want to stop that narrative, you can't let teams openly tank. So I would do the pick protection thing. I would look at flattening the odds even more. I would take away picks. And then eventually, if those things don't work, I would look at getting rid of the draft entirely.
You talk about like business kids in college. The Big Four is always a big competition. Would Chicago fall in the Big Four in NBA?
You know, they don't win enough. It's a big enough brand. I do think people would want to play for the Bulls in that scenario. But no, I don't, Lakers, Heat, other places with tax advantages. No, I do think the Bulls would probably fall outside of the Big Four.
All right, Danny Parkins, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on with us today.